What's up, YouTube fam? This is your girl, Loryn Denise, host of This Too Shall Suck podcast, a fresh perspective on grief. Welcome back, you guys. This is my last episode of season 3, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear this episode. This is really a personal, very personal episode. I get into my story of losing my parents. There's some tears there. There's some different emotions there. But I really get into the story and give you some tips on, how to kind of navigate that world and just really sharing my story. I don't think I've ever really, I kind of touched on it a little bit, but I didn't really like share it. So today I get to fully share that story with you guys. And so I'm grateful that you all are here. So if you have lost a parent, and I don't mean necessarily like mom, dad, it could be grandma, granddad, aunt, uncle, a parent figure, and you are trying to navigate, please watch this episode. If you know somebody who may be going through, maybe their parent is sick and they're thinking about it, send this episode to them. Somebody who has lost a parent, send it to them. Again, this is just a really, really personal episode, and I am so glad that you all allow me the space and time to be able to share my story. And so I can't wait for you guys to hear my story. Let me know what you think. Of course, leave a comment. Let me know your journey. I love talking to you guys, and I cannot wait. I hope you guys enjoy this personal story from Miss Loryn Denise. Welcome back, my loves, to the final episode of season 3. You guys, we made it. We made it. 3 seasons of This Too Shall Suck podcast, a fresh perspective on grief. And I'm just so thankful for you guys. I mean, I can go into a whole love fest about the support that you all have brought me, and just the love that you all have shared, and the DMs and the reviews and the messages. I'm just so grateful. So we are here at the very last episode. And if you are watching on YouTube, you see me, I typically have lights, camera, action, dolled up, hair done. But today it's funny, I've been kind of avoiding this episode because I want to talk about it. Obviously, this kind of the catalyst that started my journey into this whole grief journey, this grief mission, this grief, trying to just help people understand grief. And so I wanted to come, as true as possible, as true to form as possible. And so that is coming, with my good hair twisted, no makeup on. And that's just where we're at. And so if you are watching me on YouTube, hey, girl. If you are listening to me, hey girl, hey guys. No, honestly. So obviously, as you all can tell, by the title of this episode, finally going to be talking about the grief of losing your parents. If you are just joining, you can go back to season 1, episode 1. I talk a little bit about my journey into grief and to why I started this podcast. But today I'm actually going to really dive into those feelings that happen when you lose a parent or parents. And when I say parent or parents, it doesn't necessarily have to be your biological parents. It could be a step parent. It could be a grandma, granddad. It could be an aunt, uncle, somebody who you deemed as mom or dad in your life. And so really, really diving into those feelings. And so I think I'll be fine, but I don't want to get all emotional, on camera, but when I'm talking about my parents, things happen. And so I'm going to really, really give it a valiant effort, you guys. But I wanted to really finally kind of talk about it. I don't think I've ever really, really dove into it on the podcast. Again, I kind of touch on it here and there. But to really, really talk about it, because I've just seen, I guess a lot of people in my age range have either lost a parent or losing parents. And at some point in life, we're all going to lose our parents. That's just what it is. And you hope that they live till 90, 100, 105, etc. But sometimes life just likes to show out on you. And so, I kind of want to talk about it from the perspective of, what happened with my mom, what happened with my dad, all the feelings that I had, all the things that I went through, and some tips that I just kind of wrote down and came up with that helped me in this process and still help me to this day, because again, at the end of the day, grief is something that's going to be with you forever. It's just about how you choose to acknowledge it, how you choose to control it. What do you want your narrative to be when it comes to grieving? And so I'll keep it together, y'all. But so let's take it back. It's story time. So this, you know what, this episode, it's going to be story time. It's going to be story time with Lo. Grab your hot chocolate, cocoa, wine, whatever it is that your beverage of choice is. And we're just going to dive right in. And I'm going to tell you my story 3 seasons later. I'm going to dive into my story. So let's take it back circa 2014. 2014. I want to say it was around January. So actually, no, circa 2013. Maybe the end of 2013. My mom shared with me that she, had been diagnosed with breast cancer. And of course, I'm like, okay, because I've heard of cancer, obviously, but it had never been close to home. Like I had never really experienced it like that. And so I didn't really know what to do with that information. I was just kind of like, okay, so, where are we at? What stage is it? Have you told anybody else? She's like, nope, you and your dad are the only ones who know. I don't want it to be a thing. I don't want to scare your siblings. Like I just don't. I'm like, okay. And so from that point, again, like end of 2013, it was okay, what's the next step? And I believe she went to Emory in Atlanta. She had started seeing some doctors there, and they started telling her obviously about her options. Let's do chemo, let's do this, let's do that. And my mom was very much she wasn't like a super naturopath, but she, was such just like eating salads. Like she just, she would eat other stuff because my dad was a barbecue chef. So she would eat that, but she was very much like health conscious, right? And so she was kind of like, okay, like they're talking about chemo, but I kind of want to try something a little different. And my uncle said, and Aunt Madison, at the time, I don't know if Madison maybe told her about like kind of a natural form of chemo or what, but they were very much on that path. And so she started doing like a kind of a natural form of chemo. I don't really know. I wish I knew the correct terminology, and I'm gonna figure it out. And if I can find it, because I have some of my mom's stuff, like journals and stuff. So if I can find it, then I will post it on my Instagram and Facebook. But she started doing that. And so I would take her to her appointments. I remember it was over in Sandy Springs in Georgia. And at the time I had no idea. It's funny because like the last house I lived in Georgia before I moved to Ohio was in Sandy Springs. And I would pass that place all the time. And I was like, oh my God, like this is where I would take mom. But anywho, sorry, side note. But yeah, so I would take her to her appointments. And, I don't know if anyone listening has ever been to chemo, but you go in a room, they have like a nice kind of like a lazy boy kind of situation. And, that's where they do the chemo. And she had a port. So before that, she had to get a port inserted into her skin. And so it was like right kind of where like her collarbone, like right below that. And so they put it there. And so instead of having to like poke you every time to do your chemo, they just stick it right in your port, and it's just easier to do it that way. And so that's what happened, is that, we would go, and I was working at the time, and I would take my work laptop and I would be in there with my mom, and we would be in there talking, or she would have music, or, it was just whatever it was. And she did that for a few months. And, the doctor was like, oh, it's kind of shrinking. It's not shrinking that much. And she just really just didn't want to do like the traditional chemo. But when the doctor was like, hey, it's not shrinking that much, blah, blah, blah. I remember vividly, we were sitting in the kitchen. It was me, my dad, and my mom. We were sitting in the kitchen, and a Cancer Treatment Center of America commercial came on. And I was like, Mom, you should go. Like, look, they say they do all this. And, my mom, if you knew my mom, sweetest lady, but she just wasn't going to do that. And so literally I called them. I called them either that day, excuse me, or maybe the next day. And I was like, hey, my mom, blah, 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 blah. And they were like, okay, well, can we call her? And I think I gave my dad's number. And my dad, then talked to them from there. And so then they started going down to, I can't remember the name of the city, but it was probably about like an hour and a half or 2 hours away from where we lived in Georgia. And so what they went down there, they did like a consultation. My mom was like, I really like the doctor. I think it was a Black woman at the time. She's like, I really like her. She has a whole plan, this, that, and the third. And so they would go down for like a weekend, and they would put them up in a hotel, and she would go and do her treatments. And I believe then she did start doing the traditional chemo, and they started like giving her like different foods and stuff like that. Like we were like, okay, like we're good. Like, again, so this is all happening in 2014, right? So we're good. All of this is good. So in 2014, also, I became a flight attendant. So I became a flight attendant in June of 2014, and I had to relocate to Phoenix during that time. And because I was like, okay, she's doing good, she's doing well, I moved from Atlanta to Phoenix to be in base. Because if you know anything about being a flight attendant, being on reserve and being on call, like trying to fly from Atlanta to Phoenix on a whim is yikes, it's a doozy. But so I moved to Phoenix. But again, my siblings are there, my dad is there, everybody's there, she's good. But again, my mom was not a person, and maybe this is like an older, I don't know, Black person thing. I don't know, but like, and I think it is because we've talked about it a lot on this season of, what happens in this house stays in this house. So she didn't really tell a lot of people. She didn't even tell like her best friend, like, a lot, just a lot of things, were happening in that time that I didn't find out until after she passed. But so I was living in Arizona, and I was like, cool, she's doing good, this is great. So this was 2014. So then she got her surgery. She Because the tumor had shrunk after going to the cancer treatment center. Tumor had shrunk, and so the surgeon was like, or the doctor was like, we can go in and take out the tumor. And I was like, okay, great. And right before she was going to take out the tumor, y'all, she let me feel it, and it felt like a rock in her breast. Like, it was the like, to this day, it's just really weird. Because she was like, it's right it's like, how soft, like, breast meat is on a body, right? And it was just like a rock just like sticking outside of it. And so it was like, it was just really, really weird. And so she went to surgery. I still have the picture of my phone, and I look at it from time to time. And sorry. She she went and got surgery, and surgery was good. They were like, surgery successful. We took out the tumor, and they had to take out some lymph nodes, because they thought it had spread there to her lymph nodes, right? So they took out some lymph nodes, everything is good. So this is now we're moving to like the end of 2014, and cancer free. Woo, woo, woo. You know what I mean? Like, we're hype, hype, hype. Fast forward into 2015. Again, I'm still living in Arizona. She's there. Around maybe like end of January, February, she starts going to the hospital for she keeps getting fluid in her lungs, right? And her arm. My mom was a little thing. Like, literally like 5'3", 5'4", skinny, like just a cute, like a cute little petite thing. And her arm would get so big, like so swollen. So I don't know if you guys know how the lymphatic system works, like, but the reason why, like, your underarms basically kind of excrete all of the toxins and things from your body. And so when people go and get these shots to like not sweat, I'm like, your body has nowhere to release these toxins. But that's neither here nor there. That'll be a whole nother rant. Okay. So I'm not. But anyways, and so because what happened is apparently too many lymph nodes were taken out of her body. And so her body didn't have anywhere for these fluids to go. And so her arm would swell up really bad because her body wasn't draining those fluids. And so she would have to get like lymphatic massages and things like that. But at one point, again, she started going to the hospital because she kept getting fluid in her lungs. Because again, this fluid has nowhere to go because y'all have taken too many lymph nodes out, which don't even get me irritated actually talking about it. So She starts going to the hospital for that. So now they're like, they do what they need to do. She goes back home. It happens again. They do it. And this happened like maybe 3 or 4 times before they finally started checking for the fluid in her lungs. And then they said, oh, the fluid in her lungs has cancer in it. Cancer's back. What do you mean? Why y'all said it was gone when y'all did the surgery? What do you so was it never gone? Like, I'm confused because this wasn't too long ago. So irritated. But so cancer is back. But again, she's kind of going in and out the hospital, trying to get it together. I'm still living in Arizona at the time. And I'm trying to talk to her in between the hospital. She's like, I can't really talk, like, my breath. But she kept good spirits, the whole time. It was funny. Like one time in particular, she called me. She's like, Loryn, you know, I just want to say, I think I found you a man. I said, what do you mean, Mom? You found me a man? Who was this man? She was like, well, this man, how they take you and push you in the wheelchair to your car and stuff. I'm like, yes, mother, I do. She's like, I know you. He's very handsome. He has a job. And I know you like him thick in the neck. And he was thick in the neck. So when I say I like him thick in the neck, I like more I guess football player build is what, like, the only way I can describe it, like just thick necks. Like, it sounds very weird, and I know y'all probably like, Loryn, what? But she knew what I meant, and apparently said man who pushed her in a wheelchair was attractive, nice, had a job clearly, and was thick in the neck. And she was like, so next time you come back, I'm like, well, I hope you're not in the hospital so I can see him. Okay, like, girl. But so that she just like kept like she just have really good spirits. And so that last time she was in the hospital, she was it was March, beginning of March. It was end of February, beginning of March was the last time that she was in the hospital before she I guess we'll say regular hospital before she went to ICU. And so she I was talking to her and she was fine. And then my dad called me probably like maybe a couple days later, if not the next day, and was like, I'm sorry guys, I don't know. I think I ate some pizza or something. Like, I don't know what's going on. But he called me the next day, or maybe a couple days after that, and was like, hey, your mom's going to ICU. And he said it so calm, and I'm like, sir, what? He's like, no, like, I had to basically tell them they needed to do something because she was struggling breathing. And I was like, y'all need to do something about my wife. She can't breathe. And so they moved to the ICU and she's breathing much better now. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, that's a different conversation than like she's in ICU. So they moved to ICU. And so that again was maybe like end of February, beginning of March. That's the last time I actually was able to have a conversation with my mom where she was able to sorry if you're watching me on YouTube. I keep laughing because I laugh when I try not to cry. So if you're listening, sorry. That was the last time I was able to talk to her where she was able to speak back to me. And so I came probably that same week. And because of course I went to see her. So I came home that same week and she had a tube down her throat. And she was awake and she was pissed about that tube down her throat. Because I kept being like, Mom, I got this tube down your throat. And she would roll her eyes and, she would reach for my hand and stuff like that. And so people were coming in and out of the hospital to see her. And yeah, it was just like seeing somebody with a tube down their throat, somebody who you love, it's just it's just different. I don't know how it's different than when it is on TV. I'll say now when I see it on TV, it is a little triggering for me. But before, like seeing it on TV, it didn't really impact me. Now seeing it in real life, it's different. It's different. So again, I came home that week, she was good, she was alert. And then I want to say that following week, my dad called me. I was at home in Arizona. I was getting ready to go to work. I think I had like a 3-day trip or whatever. And my dad called me and he said, "Hey, I need you to come home. I think we're going to have to take your mom off life support." And I was like, "What? Like, what are you talking about? Like, she was just like, I was just talking to her last week." And he's like, "Yeah, they think she had a stroke. So we're gonna have to, you know, have some conversations." And so I'm like, "Okay." And I remember sitting in my room again. I was packing, getting ready for this trip, and I just like lost it. I just broke down. I just, cause like, what are you talking about? Like, not my mom, who was full of life, sweet as pot. Like, this doesn't make this woman doesn't do anything to not make her unhealthy. She don't smoke. She don't do none of that stuff. So I don't understand what conversations we're having. So I lost my mind and I called my job and I was like, "Listen, I have to go home to Atlanta. I don't know what's gonna happen with my mom, but I cannot work this trip." And they were like, "Okay, like, do you need us to, fly you space positive?" Which basically means instead of standby, when you're a flight attendant, it means a positive seat. But I was like, "No, the flight's wide open. I'm cool, but thank you though." And so I flew home that night. I got there and I was just looking at my dad like, what? I don't understand what we're talking about. I was just here, last week and now you're talking about, I don't understand. So, that's when he was like, "These are things that we have to think about, et cetera, et cetera." And so I was like, "Okay." And so then my dad was there every day at the hospital. And so like while I was there, I was basically calling my job like, "Listen, I don't know when I'm gonna come back to work, but this is what's going on." And they were like, "Okay, we get it." And probably that week, I was there for a week, no, 2 weeks. I was there for 2 weeks in Atlanta. I had, I think, 5 outfits. Y'all, I wore these same 5 outfits in rotation. I would, because I would tell my dad, I'm like, "Dad, you need to go home and shower." He's like, "No, I don't want to do that." And I'm like, "Go home, shower, lay, like sleep in the bed." Because that hospital bed is not comfortable at all. Like, you need to go home, shower. I'll stay. And so like I would do that. I would stay with my mom and just try and like talk to her, and I would have my conversations with her, obviously, just me and her. And I feel like she heard me. I feel like she heard me because sometimes she would open her eyes, sometimes her eyes wouldn't open, but I feel like she heard me regardless, based on the um sorry y'all. She heard what I said. She heard me. And so, there was one particular day that I was there over the 2 weeks and she had another stroke. I wasn't there. I was at home. My dad was there. It was in the daytime. So he had came back and then I went home and whatever. And he called and he was like, "Hey, you need to come up here. Mom had a stroke." And so I came up there and our close family friends were there. Like two sets of families, like our close family friends were there. And I remember coming into the ICU unit and walking into the room, and the way they had her laid out, she looked like she was dead. And I just couldn't like fathom what had happened. She was still alive, but they had literally just like taken all the sheets and stuff off of her, and the bed was flat, because I guess they had to resuscitate her. And so the bed was like flat. It wasn't, like a regular hospital bed where it was, they're sitting up or whatever. It was flat and she was laid flat and she didn't have any sheets on her. She just had the gown on her and she just had, the breathing tube. And I just was in the hallway like crying into my friend's like shirt. Like I couldn't, like, just the way she looked, it just, oh god. And so we're in there crying. My sister, oh, we always make fun of her. It is not funny, but it is funny. Like my little sister, love her to death. So if you're listening to this, hey boom, so sorry. But we always make fun of her because the way she cries is very it's very unattractive. It's very loud. It's very like dramatic. And so I'm like trying to like process what's happening, but she's crying and it's like throwing me off because I'm like, this is interesting. So it was just a lot happening in that room. Everyone's crying because I mean, again, the way she looked She looked like she was dead. And so, then we all started praying. One of our family friends was like, listen, we need to change this atmosphere in this room. And so we started praying, and it just changed the whole atmosphere. Started praying, playing praise and worship music. One of her favorite songs was Take Me to the King. Every time me and her would go to a doctor's appointment, anytime before the doctor would come in, I would play Take Me to the King by Tamala Mann on my phone, and that would get us through the appointment. And so, we just started playing different praise and worship music, and we started doing all that, right? So that happened. And then maybe I think that same night, they asked my dad, like, hey, do you want to sign a DNR, which is a do not resuscitate, in case this happens again? And my dad, oh God, he wept, and he was like, because I think they had to resuscitate her multiple times at that point. And they were like, well, what do you want to do? And so he did end up signing it. We all kind of cried together, but we were like, it's fine. She's gonna pull through. Like, my mom's a fighter. She ain't doing all that. And so, just over the next few days, people were coming in, spending time with her, all of that. Like, me and my dad were kind of switching off. Like, I would be at the hospital, or her best friend would be at the hospital. I think my aunts had came down. Maybe my grandma had came down to see her in this time. And yeah, it was just like a crazy whirlwind of a few days. And then St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 2015, I was out with my friends. I actually have the shirt on that I wore. I did that on purpose, but I have the shirt on that I was wearing that day. So my friends were like, hey, you need to get out the hospital. And I'm like, okay, and I was like, Dad, I'm going to go hang out with the girls, St. Patrick's Day, we're going to go, maybe get some drinks. So I didn't go far. I went around the corner to this restaurant, and it was me and two of my closest girlfriends. And, we were outside. I think we had just ordered drinks. And we were just talking. And then my dad called me, and I'm like, hey, Dad, what's up? And he's like, I need you to come back to the hospital. And I'm like, is everything okay? And he's like, yeah, I just need you to come back to the hospital. And I was like, okay. He's like, I'm about to call your other siblings. I'm like, okay. And so I hang up the phone with him, and my friends are like, is everything okay? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure my mom is dead. And they just looked at me and just started crying. And I didn't even like cry in the moment. I was just kind of like, I gotta go. I'll see y'all later. I'll see y'all later. And so I got back to the hospital, and the doctor was in there, and another guy was in there. And he or she no, it was a female doctor. She was like, hey, we think she had another basically stroke. They believe she's brain dead, but we have to do a test essentially to see if she can breathe on her own. If she can breathe on her own, then we're not going to declare her brain dead. But if she can't, then it is what it is. Because at this point, she wasn't really opening her eyes, or what would happen is they would come in and put a flashlight in her eye. And if you put a flashlight in your eye, if your brain is functioning properly, your eye is going to move. And so they would do that, and her eyes wouldn't move. And so I remember the night before she passed, I was there. I had spent the night with her, and I had a flashlight, and it was dark in the room. And I had a flashlight, and I opened her eye, and I put a flashlight in her eye, and it didn't move. And so in the back of my mind, I kind of knew what it was, but you try not to do that, because that morning they had to go, and they wanted to do a MRI to see if there was any brain activity. And that's what the doctor was like, listen, like, we don't see any brain activity, whatever. Because she had 2 strokes at this point, right? While in ICU. And so, because we didn't find out until after, but apparently the cancer had spread to her brain. And so, she had some strokes. So anyways, get back to the hospital, and the doctor's like, hey, we need to do this test. We do the test, and what the test is it's like an 8-minute test. I don't know why 8 minutes. I don't know where that number came from, but it was an 8-minute test to see if she can breathe on her own. And what they do is they turn off or take out the tube, or I don't think they took out the tube. I think they just turned off the machine or whatever to see if she would breathe on her own. And so it was me and my dad, the doctor, and whoever the guy was to turn off the machine. And they were like, okay, y'all ready? And we were like, I mean, yeah. So they turned it off, and we just waited, like, in silence, like, and the doctor's just looking at her watch, like, timing for 8 minutes. And me and my dad were just sitting in the room, and I was just literally like looking at my mom like, please, please, please breathe. Please breathe. Please breathe. Please breathe. Please breathe. And she did not breathe. And after that, they were like, we're going to have to declare her brain dead. You guys can decide what you want to do. If you want to take her off life support, whatever, whatever. And so my dad had called my siblings at that time. And so they all came up there, and he told them what happened and, what, what we should decide to do. And they were like, well, if you're deciding to take her off life support, then, we can take all of these tubes and stuff out of here and just kind of let her go peacefully, whatever. And we were like, yeah, let's do that. So they took all the tubes and all of that stuff off of her. I mean, you can see the heartbeat monitor, but at that point it didn't matter because you always see on these shows it goes like flatlined, and it's just not that dramatic. But so they took all that stuff out of her, and it was me, my dad, and my three other siblings there. And we were all just standing around my mom, and my sister, my older sister, was holding her hand. And when you're passing away, there's reflexes and things like that. And so I guess like one of her hand basically kind of squeezed my sister's hand. My sister was like, she squeezed my hand. And my dad was like, what? And like pushed my sister out the way and like grabbed her hand. And it was a surreal moment because I remember we could see her heart like kind of faintly beating in her chest because she had gotten so skinny at that point. And you could see her heart kind of faintly beating. And I remember her taking two last breaths, like, and then her heart just stopped. And it was a surreal moment. It was I tell people it's watching someone you love, your parents specifically, pass away is a different feeling. And to be she just went peacefully. She went peacefully, although all that other stuff happened to her. She took those two last breaths, and it was peaceful for her. And I knew that she wasn't going to be in that pain anymore that she was in uh for the past year and a half, for those past 2 weeks. Like, I knew she wasn't going to do it anymore. And so it was a surreal moment. And so, sorry, I was trying not to cry, but here we are. But it was a surreal moment, and I honestly am thankful I was there to be able to watch her transition peacefully, because it just I don't know. I don't think I would have not been able to be there and been okay. But oh gosh. All right, guys. Sorry about that. And I'm sorry if you're listening or watching and crying, because it's not easy. And if you've lost a parent or grandparent, it's not easy to watch that person who has taught you so much transition. So, whew, I'll get out of that, because I could talk about all of the stuff the week of the funeral, the week after, but I actually am going to dive into that on season 4, because I think that deserves its own time and space, because there's a lot of things that happened during that funeral planning time. And afterwards, there's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of different things that happen that I think deserve its own time and space. So I'll just move forward and start talking about my dad. And so my dad, now we're fasting forward to circa 2019. So I was in my master's program in Georgia State University, getting my global hospitality management master's. And I was, life was good. Life was good. I was traveling to Spain, and where else did I go? And London, for a trip for school. Like, I had worked with the Super Bowl. My dad and my brother went to the Super Bowl. Like, my dad had started his barbecue business because I was pushing him on Facebook to do it. And so, he started his barbecue business. Like, life was good. My dad had found a wonderful girlfriend who he loved. And life was just really good. And 20 so he started his barbecue business in April of 2019. And then I graduated technically in May of 2019 from my master's program. And so my dad came to my graduation. and all that. Now, the thing about it is my dad had this nasty, nasty cough, like a smoker's cough, and he didn't even smoke. And we were like, Dad, you need to get that together. He's like, oh, the doctor just said it's bronchitis. It's just the leftover nasal drip. And I'm like, Dad, that sounds nasty. Like, you need to get that checked out. Um, and so, he would go and get it checked out. And he was like, it's just post nasal drip. And I'm like, dude, that don't make no sense. But all right. And so fast forward to May. Is that when Labor Day is? I mean, not Labor Day, Memorial Day. Memorial Day weekend. So I had just come back from my trip to, because I had just graduated, and then we went to Spain and London right after that for graduation. It wasn't a graduation trip, it was a study abroad trip, but I had just come back, and my dad had went to the hospital for probably, I think it was that cough. He went for something, and then they sent him home, and so we were like, okay, fine. And then Memorial Day weekend, he went again. I don't remember what for, but he went again. And the doctor was like, oh, because he was peeing blood, right? And I was like, Dad, you've been peeing blood. Like, he was peeing blood, y'all, for a really, really long time. And I'm like, Dad, that something that you're not supposed to be peeing blood. Like, that don't make no sense. He's like, well, the doctor, he had done a biopsy maybe like a year prior to that. And the doctor was like, oh, here's some medicine. It'll clear up on its own in a few months. It didn't clear up on its own. So you, as a doctor, why didn't you think maybe he shouldn't be peeing blood for a year? But your excuse was that, oh, it's going to clear up on its own. Let me tell you something. I'm still very irritated that me and my siblings didn't file a medical malpractice suit, because my dad was trying to do it before he passed away, because he's like, she should have diagnosed this a while ago. And I'll get into that in a second. But anyway, so he was peeing blood. And so the doctor, or this hospital visit, which is Memorial Day weekend, he went, and the doctor was like, I want to, test you for some other things like this. That don't make no sense, like that it's what they're saying it is. So she tested him and found out he had cancer in his liver. And she was like, you have cancer in your liver. I don't think it started in your liver, though. I think it metastasized to your liver, which basically means it spread to your liver. She's like, so I want to know where it started. I'm pretty positive it's the bladder, but I want you to go to a specialist. So, he tells me this. So again, that was Memorial Day weekend. I think he called me like that maybe Monday or Tuesday or something like that. And I remember I was at my house and I was putting together some furniture pieces because I was about to get my room redone. My friend is interior designer. If you haven't listened to her episode, Janelli, we have a bonus episode talking about interior designing and how it can help you with your grief. But I was going to get my room redesigned. And so I was putting together some furniture, and he called me. He's like, hey, I got to tell you something. I don't want you to tell your siblings. I don't want you to tell anybody. But I have cancer. It's in the liver. They believe it's starting the bladder, but and I was like, okay. Like, I was just kind of like, okay. I was like, so what we gonna do? We gonna fight? He was like, yeah, we fighting this thing. What you think? Like, ain't no sucker, ain't nobody laying down taking his cancer. Like, if you knew my dad, that was his personality, honey. And so I was like, okay, cool. He's like, I don't want you to get sad. I don't want to hear all that. He's like, we gonna fight this thing. Da, 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 da. And I was like, okay, all right, cool. And I remember hanging up, and I was sitting in the foyer area of my old place where I was staying in Georgia, and I just turned on some worship music really loud. I don't think my roommate was home at the time, but when she came home, I know she thought I was crazy, because I was like, "Ugh!" Like, I was mad, and I was just like, why? Like, I was pissed, and I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, no. Because what happened is I had to go to the place of what would happen if. And people are like, you shouldn't go to that place. Yes, you should. Because I think what it did was it didn't necessarily prepare me more, but when it happened, I was able to process it a little different, because I had already went to the place of, what is this going to look like if your dad does pass away? That doesn't mean that you're wishing that upon them. That just means that I had to understand that this is a possibility. And so what is that going to look like if that happens in your life? What are you going to choose to do with that situation? Excuse me. And so I was just like screaming. I was listening to worship music. I was crying. I went through so many emotions in like an hour. I think I went through like all the stages of grief in like an hour. And I went through like 25 different emotions. People probably would have thought I had multiple personality disorder. Like I just went from here to there to here to here, just a mess. Um, and I got through that. And then after that, I think the next day I was like, all right, Dad, what we need to do? I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to fight. I got my feelings out. I'm ready to fight. And from that point forward, y'all, like me and my dad was rolling to them doctor's appointments. We were at every appointment, filling out all the paperwork. I was going back and forth to his house, making sure he took his medicine, trying to cook, all these things, right? Just trying to make sure that we need to do whatever we need to do to fight this thing because I need my daddy. I already don't have my mom here physically. I don't not need you. Okay. I'm still in school at the time. Luckily I had stopped working at that time because I was back and forth to the hospital and there was to doctor's appointments. There was just no way that I was going to be able to have a job and be able to do those things. And so I remember when we found out what stage it was for my dad. We went to after he went to the hospital and he got diagnosed, we went to the specialist and she was like, yeah, it has metastasized to your liver, but it is bladder cancer and it's stage 4. And we both were just in the room, just like quiet. And we just kind of, I don't even know what the doctor said after that. Because all we heard was stage 4. Because there's stage 1 through 4, and we're like, how did it? Like we caught it at stage 4. Like how did we get here? Like I think that was the biggest thing is how did we get here? I feel like that escalated quickly. But obviously it didn't because it was misdiagnosed back in the day. But that's neither here nor there. Again, don't get me irritated. So we heard that we were like stage 4, and we were like, okay. And so like we both got in the car and we just kind of sat there and I was like, okay, so you ready to fight? He was like, yep. And but he was all over the place mentally, of course. And I was like, I got you. Like we're good. And so we rolling back and forth to doctor's appointments, hospital visits, all that. And so fast forward to end of July. Yeah, end of July. And he went to the hospital. I was actually I was doing a baby shower for one of my closest friends. And so I was at the baby shower and my little sister called me. She's like, hey, dad's at the hospital again. I'm like, again, he was just at the hospital. Like, but because I think he had just come back from the hospital like a week before that. And so she's like, yeah, he's at the hospital, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, cool. So I tell my friends, hey, I have to go. My dad's at the hospital. I go to the hospital. I'm like, man, what's up, man? What's going on? He's like, man, I don't know. Da, 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 woo, woo, woo. Right. So he's in the hospital. It's a nice hospital in Atlanta. And so we're like, oh, okay, he's cool. And then I talked to him on the phone that night and he was like slurring his words like he was drunk. Like it was weird. And so I asked my sister, I was like, did you talk to dad? Like something like that, something's not right there. I don't know why he's talking like that. She's like, yeah, I don't know. And I think she had went to the hospital that next day. And she was like, yeah, I need you to go to the hospital because something's not right. I don't know if they're doing something. So I get up there and he is just being weird, slurring his words, acting like he can't remember his name, all this crazy stuff. And I'm like, what's happening? So I asked the nurse that because it was a nighttime. I asked the nurse, I'm like, hey, I need you to get a doctor in here because something's not right with him. That doctor came in there and she's like, well, maybe he's having a stroke. She was so nasty, baby. I said, sweetie, you don't want to go toe to toe with me about my daddy. And she wanted to go toe to toe. And baby, I was stepping all on them toes. And I was like, girl, yeah. Y'all, I was going toe to toe with this woman. I was like, girl, I promise you, if you don't get another doctor in here, me and you gonna have a problem. Okay. I will tear this whole hospital up. I will run this whole hospital up. You better get somebody else in here. Sure enough, they sent somebody else in there, black woman who had seen my dad because again, he was there literally, I think like a week before. And she was like, oh, I remember him. She's like, why is he talking like that? I was like, Sistren, this is what I'm saying. Why is he talking like that? This is not him. And she's like, yeah. She's like, I'm gonna send him down for like an MRI, whatever she did. Thank you. Thank you. And if you know what? Actually, I'm gonna do that in season 4. I'm not even about to go there. I'm not even about to go there. about why it's important for representation in the medical field. But I'm not even about to go there because we're going to dive into that in season 4 because I'm going to get upset. Anyways, let me bring it back down. So, um, she does what she does. They come back, they're like, he hasn't had a stroke, blah, blah, blah. We just don't know why he's doing that. So the doctor comes in next day, me and my little sister are there, and they're like, maybe you need to start having conversations about like hospice care. And we're like, what? So you're telling me he didn't have a stroke? You're telling me the cancer has not gone to his brain, but you're talking to me about hospice? I don't understand what's happening here. So then the infectious disease doctor comes in and is like, yeah, we have him on this for this. We have him on this for this. We have him on this for this. So at the time, my sister was in nursing school. And so she has literally a book of all the medicines. No, like I think it's like a Bible from like A to Z medicines, like legit. And they're telling us all these medicines. They're telling us all these medicines. And mind you, any conversation that they had, I had a notebook and I would record the conversation. I still have them in my phone. And I would record them on my phone so I can listen to them later. Or if anything ever happened, oh, I got receipts, boo. What I don't play about is my family. Okay. And so like we're going through and we're looking, and the one medicine that we found, it some of the side effects are side effects of stroke, slurred speech, memory loss, all of these things. And we're like, I'm sorry, what is that medicine for? And they're like, oh, it's a just in case medicine, just in case he gets a bladder infection. I'm sorry, does he have a bladder infection? Or, well, no, we're doing, take him off that medicine. Y'all, no more than 48 hours after they took him off that medicine, his speech got normal. He was remembering stuff. So I say that to say y'all advocate for whoever your loved ones are, because sometimes I don't have a problem with doctors. I don't have a problem with nurses. Again, my sister's a nurse. She does wonderful work. What I have a problem is that you all are practicing physicians. You're practicing this field that you're in. And so sometimes things you don't get it right all the time, and that's okay. But that's why you as a family member have to ask questions. And so if we had not asked questions and we would just been like, all right, guys, this is it, and took my daddy home, you know what I'm saying? Like that don't make no sense. Because again, 48 hours after they took him off and it got out his system, he was fine. Like he was fine in the sense that he wasn't like slurring his words and stuff, but it's like that does y'all are doing something to prevent something, but it's not there. So it's unnecessary and causing unnecessary side effects. And so, literally, y'all, from that point forward, me or my sister or somebody was there 24/7 with my dad. You would think he had a security detail because my dad was never alone for more than an hour, period, because we did not trust them moving forward. Anytime they had to put medicine in him, I was like, what medicine is it? I would text my sister. I'll be like, hey, they're putting this medicine. Is this okay? She'd be like, yep, that's good. Or she was like, no. And I was like, I'm sorry, he can't do that. Like, honey, we were not playing games because y'all are not doing right. Okay. Like, we gave y'all a chance. Y'all could have, like, literally, like, done it right, but we left y'all with him for 48 hours and you messing up. So, no, you can't be trusted moving forward. So, literally, for the next 17 days, 15 days actually, because my dad was in the 17 days because he was there 19 days. And so for the next 17 days, me and my sister were there day in and day out. I would spend a night for 3-4 days, then she would spend a night for 2-3 days, and I would spend a night again. I was in school, she was in nursing school, and we were doing this like just like whatever, we just gonna make it work. And the times when we couldn't be there, like his girlfriend would come, my uncle would come, like somebody was there all the time because we just didn't trust them. And don't get me wrong, they had amazing like nursing staff, and things like that, but I just cannot, like, I didn't have a problem with the nurses, and obviously the nurses are not going to do anything without the doctor's orders. But some of those doctors, although they're super smart, like I felt like they lacked empathy for our situation, and I wasn't feeling it at all. And so we were there day in and day out. And y'all, when I tell you I was exhausted because sleeping on a hospital bed, first of all, is not comfortable. And my dad couldn't sleep in the middle of the night. And then it got to a point where they were busy sometimes. So like me and my sister, again, she's trained in, cleaning patients and stuff. And I told her, I was like, girl, I'm a nurse. Like I became a nurse. Like I would be changing my dad, cleaning my dad, getting them food, just all of these things, right? So that would be happening in the middle of the night, or he couldn't sleep. There's an app on my phone that I have to this day. It's not a meditation app, it's like a nighttime app and it has music and stuff. And I would put that on to try and help him go to sleep. And sometimes it would work and sometimes it wouldn't. But he would be up at like 2 a.m. Be like, I can't sleep, I'm uncomfortable. And we would be up to like 2 or 4. And then he would go to sleep at 6. And then they, of course, they would come in there and start checking on him, and he would be pissed, or he would have to get breathing treatments. Y'all, it was exhausting. It was the most exhausting time of my entire life. Because again, we were there day in and day out. I would go home, like I said, spend the night, or go home. My sister would spend the night, and then and we both were in school. It was a crazy, crazy time. And then they basically were like, hey, we want to do some physical therapy on him to get him well enough to be able to do chemo, because right now he's too weak, he can't do it. And so we're like, okay, cool, cool. Well, the physical therapy place that we wanted to send him to was full. And so we had to go with a backup, which I wasn't too excited about, but I was like, I would rather him do it there and then be in this hospital and wait and wait and wait, and it just gets worse. And so the day that we were sending him to the physical therapy, other which was at another hospital, uh, my little sister called me. She said they said if we take him out of here, he's gonna die. And I was like, "Excuse you?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like they were just like, "Yeah, you need to do physical therapy." I'm like, "What? What happened in like 48 hours?" I'm confused. She's like, "I guess his numbers, blah blah blah." She was like, they suggested we take him home. I said, take him home and do what? Take him home and do what? She's like, exactly. She's like, no, we're gonna try. I asked dad, does he want to fight? We're gonna try. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna try. And so we tried. We took him, my sister went and got him and took him to the physical therapy. And I remember being in my room when she called me, and I turned on my worship music so loud, and I had like kind of like a little area in my room. I called it my prayer nook. And I went over there and I was on my knees crying and begging God, like, please do not take my dad. Like, y'all, I was crying and begging him, please, please do not take my dad. So my dad got to physical therapy and he was doing good. Like I would go up, they didn't have anywhere where you can sleep. And so me and my sister weren't really like, it's not that we weren't allowed. The room was just didn't have a bed or it didn't have anything like that because people weren't meant to like spend the night up there. But of course, we're kind of like, last time this happened, I don't know. But they were doing okay. And again, I was there all the time. Somebody was there all the time in the daytime and nighttime, obviously, but we were like, okay. And he was like, I'm good, I'm fine. And I was like, okay. But there were just things that happened in there. Like because he was so weak, like, and he was so little, he lost so much weight. Like he slid off of the wheelchair that he was in and was just laying on the ground apparently for like 30 minutes. And the only reason that they knew is because the nurse happened to come in there. Girl, don't even get me upset because I'll nut up again thinking about it. But just little things. So fast forward to, and he was in there. How long was he in there? He was there maybe 7. Was he there over a week? He was there either a week or a little bit over a week. So he was there a little bit over a week, and it was 4:30 in the morning. It was August 27th. It was 4:30 in the morning. And how I know it was 4:30 in the morning is because I was actually at another hospital with my old roommate at the time because she had gotten sick and like had to pull over, like thought she was having a stroke, all this crazy stuff. And so I was in the hospital with her in her room waiting on her. And my little sister called me and she was like, hey, they just took dad to ICU. Can you make it there? And I was like, yeah, I can. I'm up. I'm up. So yeah, I'll call her friend and tell her to come here and then I'll go there. So I called her friend like, hey, my dad's in ICU. Can you come here and be with her? I'm going to go with my dad. She's like, yeah, of course. So 4:30 in the morning, I drive across town, get to my dad. This ICU was not as nice as the other ICU. Okay. This hospital just wasn't as nice as the other hospital. Let's just throw it out there. So I get there and I'm like, what is this? Ugh, like disgusted immediately. And I'm like, what's up, dad? What's going on? Like, he's like, yeah, they said my blood pressure was low and whoop de wop and da 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 da. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, how are you feeling? He's like, I'm fine. So again, I got my overnight bag because I'm prepared to stay with my roommate at the time. But now I'm over here. So I'm just kind of sitting here, like I'm a pillow, like I'm chilling. And because there was only like a bench in the room, there was no bed or anything. I'm like, oh, they don't want people to stay in here. Okay. So there was like a little bench in the room where you can sit, but there was no bed or anything. And y'all, my dad was just acting so crazy. Like he literally would be like, Loryn, come and adjust the bed. So I would adjust the bed and I would sit back down. Loryn, come adjust the bed. I'm so uncomfortable. And he did that at least 50 times. in a row. And he was like, I know I'm getting on your nerves. I said, Dad, you're not getting on my nerves. I just like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? Like, you're like, I need you to tell me what's happening in your mind right now. And he's like, I'm just so uncomfortable. And he just kept saying that. And like, he was just really driving me insane. And I text my sister, and I was like, your dad is driving me crazy. I don't know what's going on, but he's driving me crazy. And she's like, okay, like, I don't know what's going on either, whatever. And so, he just kept saying that. He kept moving around all weird. He was just being very, very weird. And I was like, Dad, I would literally every 5 minutes, I'm like, Dad, are you good? Like, cause he was just being weird, like just moving weird, kept being like, adjust the bed. Very, very weird. Very, very weird. And so again, he kept moving around. My back hurts, like just being weird. So they were coming in, checking his heart, doing all the things. Cause of course in ICU, they're doing all the things. And this lady came in to change his catheter out because my dad had ripped out his catheter. And if you know anything about a catheter and where it goes, for him to rip it out, I was like, oh my God, something's happening here. Something is happening here. Okay. And y'all need to figure it out because that is not normal for someone to do. That means he's in pain and y'all need to figure it out. So the lady comes in and she's trying to reattach the catheter. And again, he kept just being like, my back hurts. Shit, my back hurts. And I'm like, Dad, why? Like, I'm just looking at him like, what? I don't know. How can I don't know what to do. Like you feel helpless because it's like, I don't know what to do. Like, what can I do? Like ice pack? Like, I don't know what to do. So you feel helpless. And so he's just yelling, like, my back hurts, my back hurts, my back hurts. The girl's putting in the catheter and he just like, is like, my back hurts. Like, shit, my back hurts. And then y'all literally like, literally he just was, I was like, Dad, you good? And he just like stopped and his eyes just got really wide and his mouth just like froze. And I'm like, Dad, because I'm looking at him. And the girl is still putting in this one got on my nerves the most. Is homegirl still putting in the catheter? Like, you don't see what's going on. So I'm looking at her stupid. Like, girl. So I'm like, Dad, like I'm screaming. So now the nurse is across the hall. So she hears me screaming his name. And I'm like, Dad. I'm like screaming. Now I'm like tapping him because he's not, y'all. His mouth is open, his eyes are wide, he's not moving. And the nurse is now coming in because she sees and she starts lowering the bed. Like the moment she walked in the door, she's lowering the bed because I feel like she knows it's about to go down. And so I'm like, Dad, I'm tapping him. His head rolled to the side and liquid started coming out of his mouth, like a clear liquid. And then all of a sudden the bed dropped. I mean, homegirl dropped. I tell my sister all the time, homegirl dropped that bed quick. I didn't even know hospital beds can do that, but that bed dropped so quick, and all you heard was all this beeping, all these noises going off. And she had jumped on that bed and was on top of him and doing CPR. And next thing I know, I'm backed up in a corner, and had to be like 30 people in the room. I'm in pure shock because they are CPRing on him. There's 11 people in the room. All of these people come out of, I promise y'all they came. I don't know. I'm like, where were y'all all even at? Like, they all were in the room. I was literally, y'all, when it happened and I saw his head roll to the side, I was just like, like I lost my breath. And that's why I just backed up into the corner because I was just like, what is going on? And so she's doing CPR. All these people are in the room. And I call my little sister and I'm like, hey, I was like, I'm in the corner. Like, I'm like ducked in a corner, y'all. And I'm like, hey, they're doing CPR. He's coding. You need to get to the hospital right now. And she's like, okay. And so I call my other two siblings. I'm like, hey, he's coding. Y'all need to get to the hospital right now. They're like, okay. And I don't even remember this, but my little sister said I called her right back after that and said the same thing. And she was like, Loryn, I heard you. I don't even remember calling her a second time because I was just in the corner and I just started like literally praying, y'all. And I guess at this now they realize I'm in the corner because again, I'm like literally like ducked down in the corner. So I guess someone finally realized I'm in the corner and she's like, honey, come with me. Because they're just in here just doing CPR and like I said, it's lights and sound. It's just everywhere. And so now they take me out the room and the lady's like, come sit over here. Do you need any water or anything? And I'm just like, I just like trying to breathe. And I was like, I can't breathe. And she's like, I need you to breathe. And I was like, I can't breathe. And so I called my godmother and I'm like, he's coding. Like I'm on the floor, duck down, y'all. And I'm like, he's coding. I need you to pray because I can't pray. I don't have any words. And she just started praying. She started praying in tongues. And I was just like, I don't, she's like, where are you? I'm like, I'm at the hospital. I'm waiting for, my siblings to get up here. And she's like, okay. She's like, just breathe. And I'm like, I'm trying to breathe. Like everybody's telling me to breathe. And I'm trying to breathe and I cannot breathe. Like I can't. Like y'all aren't hearing what I'm saying. And so so that happens. And so the doctor comes out and he's like, we got him stable. We want to intubate, is it intubate or incubate? Intubate. Basically put a tube down his throat. We want to put a tube down his throat. But we have to get an okay from you. And at the time, my sister was a medical directive power of attorney. And so I called her. I was like, hey, they want to put a tube down the throat. She's like, yeah, just sign it. So signed it and they started the intubation process. And so by that time, my older sister, my little brother had got there. So they come in and they see all the chaos that's happening in that room. They see me over here in a corner and they're just like, what? I was like, bruh, I don't, like, he was just yelling and then all of a sudden his head just went to the side. I don't have any answers. And so so we're all sitting there, we're trying to figure out, like, we're just kind of like looking, just trying to figure it out. I call my older sister who lives in Ohio at the time and I'm like, dad just coded, whatever. And she's like, and I'm like, if you need to get down here like as soon as possible, because I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's gonna be a week, like I don't know what's happening. So she's like, all right, cool. So literally I get off the phone with her and then we hear the siren, they're not sirens, whatever, the coding thing goes off again. So he codes again, y'all, codes again. And literally when he codes again, my little sister was coming in and she comes running up the hallway because she's in nursing school, so she knows what that means. And so she comes running up the hallway, she looks in the room, they're doing all the stuff again, and she's just kind of standing there. My brother-in-law is there and we're just kind of like looking. So she comes over and like we're all just kind of like looking at each other. Like we don't really have anything to say. We're all just looking at each other. And I had I think like 5 different group chains of just letting people know what was going on with my dad. And so I just told everybody, like, please pray right now. I didn't tell anybody what's happening. I was like, just please pray. And so everybody's like, praying, da da da. And so he coded again. So my little sister's there. The doctor comes over. He's like, listen, I just want to be honest with you guys. We're gonna try and because they were trying to put the tube down his throat when he coded again. They're like, we're gonna try, but we don't know how many more times his body can take it, because you're breaking ribs and all that stuff. When you're doing CPR, you're breaking ribs and all that stuff. And so, I just don't know how much longer we could take it. And he's like, all right. And so he's like, you all can decide what you want to do. But if it happens again, we just need to know what we need to do. And so literally he walks off and y'all, he codes again. He coded 3 times within a 40-minute time span. And I think 40 is a long time. It might have been 30. He coded 3 times. And so at that point, my little sister had to be the one to make the call since she was the power of attorney medical directive. So like when the doctor walked off, I was like, listen, whatever you choose to do, we support you. And he coded again right after that. And so we're all just sitting there like, oh my God, like seriously, like seriously. And so she walked over to the room and she was standing at the door where they were doing all the things. And I just heard her scream. I just heard her scream right after that. And I told y'all she has a very loud, dramatic cry. And that's what I heard. And so I already knew what time it was. And because she had jumped on the bed, because she had yelled for them to stop, like doing the CPR. And she just jumped on the bed and just started losing it. And my brother-in-law is trying to get her off the bed. We're all like, okay, that's it. So now I go over to the room and look at him and it was just really, really, again, those reflexes that happen after you pass away, your body kind of does weird things. That's what was happening. And I'm like, why is his body moving? Like, it was just there's tubes hanging out. He had stuff. It was, oh God, it was really bad. And my brother is like pissed and he's like, put him back on the machine, put him back on the machine. So I'm trying to push him away because he's trying to swing on doctors. I'm like, y'all do know this happened 4 years ago in ICU at a hospital. My mom passed. Wow, it's crazy. My sister's like, it's a circus. It's a circus. It's the easiest way I can explain it. It's just a circus, y'all. It was just a circus. And then, at that point, I just had to tell everybody, like, he passed away. So now people are calling, they're coming up there. It in the it just began. So again, like I said, I'll kind of get into the funeral and after effects, all that next season. But y'all, it was being in the room again for the second time when my mom passed and then my dad passed. I was just like, why, Lord, why? Why did you want me to see my parents pass? What am I what why? Why did I need to be in the room when my parents passed? Why did I need to see that and live with that? Um it was rough, y'all. It was rough. As y'all can see, I have pulled it together a little bit, but cried a couple times during there. And I know this episode is long and I'm sorry, but I just, I don't think there was a way to adequately, not explain the feelings of losing a parent and watching losing a parent. So, yeah, it was, yeah. So, with that, I want to get into some tips really quickly because again, I know this is getting long with my story time, but I wanted you guys to really know that feeling, and I wanted to be authentic to see the grief that you have to live with when you see that all the time, and not having your mom and dad and thinking about those things like I think about all the time, like when I get married and not having my mom there to help me plan or dress shop, and my dad not to walk me down the aisle, or when I have kids, like, just thinking about stuff like that. So, you know, living without your parents, again, whether it's a grandparent, aunt, whatever, it's not easy, and it's not something for the faint of heart. And I don't wish it upon anyone, especially people at a young age. Because I was 27 when my mom passed, I was 31 when my dad passed. Those were pivotal kind of moments within my life. And even now that they're not going to be able to be a part of them seeing this podcast, them seeing me successful at certain things. Like they're just not going to be able to necessarily see that in person. I know they're there with you all the time, whoop to wop, that's great. But you have those feelings regardless of like, dang, like I really just want to talk to my parents. So let me get into these tips real quick because I know this is getting long winded. So I want to get into this so we're not here all day. But thank you guys for allowing me to express that. So these are some tips that I just wrote down myself, things that I've worked through in order to kind of move forward, not move on because you're never going to move on, but to be able to move forward in life. And so these are in no particular order. I was just writing. So the first thing I wrote is know that the first are always going to be the hardest, and they are. First birthdays, first Mother's Days, first Father's Days, first anniversary, first whatever are always going to be the hardest. So that first time something happens that you're not able to reach out and talk to that loved one again, whether it's a mother, father, aunt, etc., that's going to be the hardest. And I'm not saying the other ones won't be hard. What I'm saying is that one is the hardest. And to just know that, and that's okay that it's going to be the hardest. Like my dad died in August, right? And so right after that, we funnel into the holidays. That's when I started therapy because it was hard, y'all. It was hard having to navigate and go to like different functions, the time when you're supposed to be with family and loved ones, and Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so me and my siblings navigated it really great, but it was still hard. First Father's Day, first Mother's, all of them are hard, y'all. Their first birthdays, they're just hard. They're hard. And I'm not saying their first only like their birthday after their pass, but like your own birthday. My birthday's in October. Again, like I was like, I don't want to celebrate. What do I look like celebrating like when my parents are gone? And my friend was like, no, you need to let people celebrate you. You need to do something, those are hard. The second thing is that so I guess these are like tips and things. Tips and things. That's what we're calling tips and things segment. Lean into your support network. I have an amazing, amazing support network, and I tell them all the time. I tell them I love them all the time. I can't thank them enough. because when my dad passed, all of our friends just came out of I didn't even like text some of them. Like two of my friends literally popped up at the hospital. I had no idea. Like we were in the little waiting room area where they have the families wait after somebody passes. And my friend popped up out of nowhere. She was getting her hair done, y'all. Let me tell you how she a real Janelle, who's on the bonus episode. She was getting her hair done. She saw the text. Got out the chair, hair wet. She got out the chair and popped up at the hospital. I didn't even know she was coming, and she just popped up at the hospital, and I just cried into her arms like I had no idea. One of my other friends worked far away, like far away from where the hospital was, popped up out of nowhere. She's just like, I just got in the car. She's like, I just saw it and I just got out. She was at work. She was like, I literally just got up, left work, and got in the car and drove. Like, no, like, absolutely not. And so, then like they had like a whole text chain that I didn't know about. They were like, hey, who's with Loryn right now? Hey, I'm about to go. Hey, I'm about to like they had a whole thing going on. My friend in Virginia, her husband was like, do I need to fly you down there right now? Like they had a whole situation. And so it makes me emotional because I'm just so grateful that I had friends who just came through. Like my friends came and cleaned the house. They brought food. Like God, they were just amazing. And so like to have that support network was absolutely amazing to be able to have because people don't have that. So whoever your support network is, whether it's one, whether it's five, whether it's 20, lean into that. Lean into them because you're going to need them more than you know, whether it's one parent or whether it's two. Fix and embrace the family relationships that you do have. And I say this with the caveat that I know some things are pretty bad. Like if somebody has maybe like assaulted you or sexually molested you or anything like that. I know those are different type of situations, but if it's a petty argument over some money, over some miscommunication of whatever, like fix those and embrace those moments because me and my family got so much closer after my dad died. Like it's crazy like how close we are now. Like I mean, I always would go toe to toe over my siblings, but like really like me and my siblings, like I don't play. Like I don't play at all. Okay? Like we are so close. Any other like family dynamics that are happening over there, we're like, yeah, no, like we've gotten closer with my dad's side of the family. Like we try and just make sure that those things are good. So if you're listening, you're having a petty situation with your family that can be fixed, fix it. Embrace those relationships because like losing family, like close family, losing a parent, y'all fix those relationships. That's all I can say. Do something in their memory. So when I say do something big, do something great. It doesn't even have to be big. Just do something that would honor them, that would bring you joy. So like for example, the um when my mom passed, we did a balloon release for her birthday, which is in November. And so what we did is I went and got some balloons. I got the little plastic lights that you can kind of turn on and off, and I put them inside the balloons. And what we did is we wrote letters on index cards. Some of her friends called and was like, "Hey, I want you to write this on index card." And then I tied them to the balloons, and then we did a balloon release, and we sent notes to heaven for her, right? To be able to do that to honor her, or even for my dad, for the repast, like we did a barbecue. He was a barbecue judge. He loved cookouts. My family loved hosting cookouts. So instead of it being sad, we had a DJ, we had food, we had drink. We did everything that my dad would want to do, right? Do something in their memory. Or the fundraiser I do for my mom every October. I'm looking to put together actually like a scholarship for my dad, certain, just do something to honor their memory, and embrace those happy memories. So I look recent, like before I was recording this episode, I said I need to figure out like how I'm going to do this episode, and I thought story time was the best time, and that's why we did it. But embrace those happy memories. So I went back and watched videos of my mom and dad laughing, me and my dad cutting up, like just embracing those memories that I did have with them because those memories are priceless. So if you have any pictures, if you have any videos, if you have any voicemails, just embrace those memories and be thankful that you have those memories and focus on those memories and not on the bad. Like I don't focus on how my dad looked when he passed. Like I focus on who my dad was before he went to the hospital, right? Like I don't focus on my mom in that moment that, she took her last breath. I focus on the times we had when I was calling her, when she was calling me talking about homeboy and the thick neck, right? Like I embrace those memories. And don't feel guilty about moving forward, right? This is something that I really struggled with for a very long time. Is I was like, I'm not, that's so like I can't, how can I be happy? How can I do these things? How can I do that? And of course, people are like, they would want you to do that, which again, I understand people are coming from a good place, but that doesn't help me feel any better about doing it. It doesn't help me feel better. I'm just being honest. And so I just had to not feel guilty about moving forward, because just because I'm moving forward is not the same as moving on. I'm actually going to be featured on a podcast, and I will drop it on my Instagram. So if you're not, follow me on Instagram and Facebook at This Too Shall Suck Podcast. And then I actually have an email list, and we'll talk about that too. But I'm going to be talking about moving forward on a podcast that I was interviewed on, and what that looks like and why that's different from moving on, because you never move on from losing that loved one. You never move on from that grief. You take it with you and you move forward, but you move forward in a positive direction. So don't feel guilty for that. And then another one, my favorite one, talk to a therapist. Y'all know I got 2 whole episodes on that, part 1 and part 2, why it's important to talk to a therapist. So talk to a therapist, talk to a counselor. Y'all, it changed my life. That's the only reason y'all see me up here doing this, is because I was able to talk to a therapist and it changed my life. And I got different perspectives, non-biased perspectives, non-emotional perspectives. It just changes your life. It just changes your life. So go back and listen to those episodes, and just know that when you're having those moments and you don't know how to navigate, having a therapist there is absolutely amazing. And then allow yourself to feel, fully feel. So allow those emotions to happen, allow yourself to process those things, allow yourself to feel however you need to feel. So if you feel angry, if you feel sad, if you feel happy, if you feel depressed, allow yourself to feel, because that's the only way you're going to be able to process it. Now I will say with that is that when you do allow yourself to feel, communicate with other people that's how you feel, because they don't know, right? And that's when I had to realize that I had to go to therapy, is because I wasn't able to communicate why I was feeling the way, not why, but that I was feeling a certain type of way, that I was upset that you weren't coming to my house and picking me up off the floor, like that you were not calling me, like I wasn't able to communicate that. And so that's why I had to go to therapy. But if you're like minding your business and then all of a sudden you bust out in tears in the middle of the floor, I would hope that when you lean to the support network, they would know, but sometimes they don't. And sometimes you have to just communicate and say, hey, like nothing necessarily happened, but I feel really sad right now. You know what I mean? And communicate that so people don't, and it's not your responsibility for other people to understand how you feel, but it is your responsibility to kind of communicate that, so then there's a less room of error for misinterpretation, if that makes sense. So definitely allow yourself to feel however you need to feel, and don't try and suppress it. And the last thing is, know that you're navigating the best you can without them, and you're doing great. And this is something that I had to tell myself, is like, you're navigating this world without your parents the best way that you can. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to do things. You're going to miss them. You're going to have moments of sadness. You're going to have moments of rebellion. You're going to have moments of being mad at them. Like, why would you leave me? You're going to have all those moments, but just know that you're navigating the best way that you know how, and you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job, because being able to navigate without that person who was like a parent figure in your life, you're doing a great job. A lot of people can't say that. A lot of people don't want to say it, and you don't want to say it either. I don't want to say it, right? But just know that you're doing great, because that's already, having to do that in itself is already a feat. So, you're doing a great job. You're navigating the best way that you can, and you're learning as you go. And you're going to always learn as you go, because you're not able to pick up the phone and call them. You're not able to, bounce ideas off them. You're not able to drop your kids off with them. You're not able to do those things. And so you're navigating the best way that you can, and you're doing great automatically, because you're having to do that on your own. And so I wanted to end off with this quote that I wrote. Um, it's something that I kind of made up on my own that has helped me understand like where I'm at. So in those moments when I'm really missing my parents, like this week, I've been really missing my parents. And I know that, when I get married and do certain things in life, I'm gonna have those moments. But that's the thing about grief. It's crazy, and it's just a crazy thing. And so the quote that I made up, this is Loryn Denise exclusive, exclusive, exclusive. Grief is a passenger in this car called life. Sometimes it messes with your radio. Sometimes it changes the directions in your GPS. Sometimes it tries to grab the wheel while you're driving. But as long as you don't let it get in the driver's seat and run you off the road, you will learn to ride along with the distraction that it's going to throw at you. And so, if you're listening to this and you have lost a parent, you have lost both parents, you have lost a parent figure in your life, um, just know that you are not alone. I am here with you as an orphan, as they call us. You're not alone. You're never going to be alone. And as cliche as it is, look for those moments when you feel the presence of your parents. Like I always see this. I've never seen this butterfly prior to my mom passing. Um, Actually never prior to my dad passing. But there's this big, beautiful butterfly. It's a yellow butterfly, has like black on it. I have never seen this butterfly until my mom passed and my dad passed. And like it was with me in the backyard one time when I was trying to make a hard decision. Sometimes when I'm on walks, I see it. I just recently saw it in Ohio. I would only see it in Georgia. Um, and then I always see like a red bird, red robin, and I only see it every now and then. And it's always when I'm thinking about my dad. Always when I'm thinking about my dad. And I'm not saying like my parents are butterflies, and but you just notice certain things, or like the wind may blow a certain type of way, or you have a hard decision, and then all of a sudden it just like comes to you, or you think of something your parents said, and you're like, "Yep, they're here." So pay attention to those moments, and to know that although their physical presence isn't there, they're there. They're trying to show you they're there. You just have to pay attention to those signs and wonders, as they call them. And again, to just know that you're doing the best that you can, and you're always going to do the best that you can. And it's not an easy thing. Don't let anybody tell you that it is. It doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are. It's not an easy thing to live life without your parents, because your parents are the ones who created the foundation for you. And so it's okay if you struggle. It's okay if you want to call them. It's okay to do those things. But I think the biggest thing is to be able to move forward and not hold on to that so much, because at the end of the day, unfortunately, your new normal is going to be to not physically have your parents, but they're always going to be there with you. And the only way that they're going to be able to be there with you is if you move forward. They're moving forward. Even wherever you move forward, they're moving forward with you. But if you don't take that first step to move forward, they can't move forward with you. Like you're holding on to this idea almost of that, like them being here. And that idea is just not real. It's just not true. It sucks. As much as it sucks to say that, it's just not true. And so to be able to move forward in that, and to be able to know like, yo, like even though they're not physically here, I have to let go of the idea that I'm going to be able to call them, or that I want to call them. I have to let go of that hurt or that loss associated with the actual death in order to be able to move forward. And I have an episode on that too. I think it's on season 2, and then talk about the grief of like losing your, or letting go of the loss associated with the grief. And so it's just, you just have to move forward, and just know that they're moving forward with you. But you're not going to be able to move forward if you don't let go of that idea. And I'm telling you from this my own experience, I had to do that in order for me to move forward into the next phase, and even to the next phase of my life, right? And so um, you know, as I always say, when you're going through the journey, when you're trying to navigate the world, I hope if you're listening to this episode, and you listen to my story time, and you saw, whether you're watching me on YouTube or listening, that you understand, like, grief is a tricky thing. Grief is a crazy thing. But as I always say, give yourself grace and be kind to yourself, because you don't, who will? You guys, this is the end of season 3. This is the end of season 3. Man, I just had to thank y'all so much for rocking with me, man. Like 3 seasons in, this episode 30, you know what I mean? And we are in 27 countries last time I looked. We are over 4,000 plays. Like, man, like I'm just honored and grateful that you all allow me to come and share this journey with you guys, be honest and open with you all, be transparent, be on here crying, no makeup, hair twisted, just being able to be myself. And I hope it's impactful to you. And I hope that you now 3 seasons in are looking at grief in a different light, and to know that, hey, I can do this. Like, grief is just in the passenger seat, but I can do this. I can walk through life and have these moments. I can walk through life and do this, right? Because you can. I'm a living testimony that you can, You just heard the story of me talking about my parents and saw the emotions connected to it, but I'm able to move forward, to be able to be here to impact and help you all. And I'm just grateful that you all continue to rock with me, continue to love me, continue to pour into me, continue to rate it 5 stars, continue to review it, continue to send me messages, continue to share it. I'm just so honored and grateful. And I know I keep saying that, but I just want y'all to know that it's true. And thank you for allowing me to be honest and to share a piece of me, a part of me, and to really kind of keep my parents' legacy going. And so I just thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. I really love you guys so much. And I am so, so honored to be able to be your host of This Too Shall Suck podcast, a fresh perspective on grief. If you haven't already, you guys, follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook at This Too Shall Suck podcast on both of them. If you haven't already, email me, let me know you love the episode at hello at this too shall suck podcast.com, and on my Instagram and on my Facebook, guys. Like, I have an email list. I'm going to be putting together some kind of grief resources, like a grief newsletter that you'll get once a week, so that if you're struggling with grief, or if you know somebody struggling with grief, they can subscribe to my email list. And you can just click the link in my bio at my Instagram or my Facebook, so you guys can get those resources. And also, if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, please remember to rate, review, and follow. It's no longer subscribe, follow, and make sure you are sharing it with your family and friends. As always, this whole season was produced by my amazing producer, Mike Sick, and all the music that you hear is produced by my amazing producer, Jimmy Samaj. You guys, I love you. We did it. We made it 3 seasons, and I cannot wait for you guys to see season 4. Let me know if you have any topics. Again, send me a message, slide in my DMs. I respond because I love talking to you guys. If you're on YouTube, definitely make sure you comment below. Let me know your story. I love to hear you guys' stories. You all just warm my heart so much. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you on the next season. Mwah. All right, my loves, I hope you all enjoyed that episode. You can actually listen to This Too Shall Suck podcast, a fresh perspective on grief, on all listening platforms. And make sure, if you're not already, following me on social media on Instagram and on Facebook at This Too Shall Suck podcast. And you can hit my website as well. Learn more about your girl, Loryn Denise, at www.thistooshallsuckpodcast.com. If you love this episode, if it resonated with you, make sure you hit that like button. Let me know, because I know I need to make more videos like that for you. And meet me in the comments. Let's talk about it. I love, love, love talking to y'all. And make sure you definitely hit that little bell, that little subscribe button. Thank you guys as always, and I'll see you on the next episode.